Sri Sachidananda Sadguru Sainath Maharaj Ki Jai. Sri Sai SATCHARITRA, an Insight. Episode 138. My humble prostrations at the lotus feet of our Sadguru Sai. By the divine grace of Sai, an attempt has been made to translate the gist of the divine discourse of Sri Ramanathan brother telecasted in Sai TV. This is purely done to share the glory of Sai and his divine teachings with more insight to the aspirants. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnuhu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurur Sakshat Parabrahmam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Devotees, we are almost at the closing of Sri Sai SATCHARITRA, chapter 25, and now let us heed to another astounding Leela related to the Saidas Mandal at Pune, constructed by Nana Sahib Rasane, who had the good fortune to have lived with Sri Sai Baba. On 12th July 1961, following a night of heavy rainfall around the city of Pune, Pancha Dam burst in its first year of storing water. This caused massive flooding in Pune. Owing to flood, nearly 1,000 people died. This Sai temple was constructed on the shore of the river, and that being a low area, the flash floods were at its peak, and quickly the river water raised almost 25 feet above the roof of this temple. Many houses crumbled down. Thus, this flooding caused the greatest ever disaster to Pune. We can say that this Pancha Dam flood changed the landscape of Pune. So the temple was completely immersed in flood waters. As this temple at Shivaji Nagar was at that time on the banks of the river, the entire temple was immersed in flood water. The small structures of mud in the compound of Rasane Chawal were drowned in the flood water, and the members of the Mandal were much worried about the temple. No sooner had the flood water subsided, the members ran to the site for salvaging the temple. It was all filled with deep sludge, and it took nearly 2 to 3 days to clean up all the mud and the thick deposits of clay that was stuck on the temple and its vicinity. To everyone's surprise, the old temple was intact. There was also an Audumber tree. Not even a branch of this tree got damaged or bent down, but stood there as before. Also, a portrait of Sri Sai Baba was framed and hung in the walls of the temple. As we just heard, the temple was submerged in flood waters for nearly 3 days, so one can imagine the status of this picture. It got soaked in the water, naturally would be completely damaged. But it was unbelievable that this picture had no stain of mud, even though the walls were stuck with mud. All those devotees who were involved in cleaning up the temple were astonished and marveled at the divine play of Sri Sainath Maharaj. If this picture could withstand the flood water without any damage, then that portrays Sri Sai's supreme powers in this temple. The temple has installed a small marble pratima of Sri Sai Baba that was made from Jaipur. The daily rituals and worship is done to this pratima. Also next to it, we can find the above said portrait of Sri Sai Baba. Devotees visiting Saidas Mandal gets to know of this miracle. Hence, they worship the pratima of Sri Sai Baba and this portrait with the same devotion and fervor. Similarly, the devotees are also keen in worshipping the great Audumber tree that withstood the massive floods. I appeal the listeners of the episode to visit this temple and reap the blessings of Sri Sai Maharaj. This temple is located in Shivaji Nagar, and this is a prime area as Pune's corporation bus stop is situated here. Temple is just at a walkable distance from this place. The address and other details can be found in the temple website. The Sai devotees in Shivaji Nagar were blessed to experience this marvel. All those who visit this temple with faith and devotion can also feel the divine presence of Sri Sai Baba. Having said this, devotees, here we complete Sri Sai SATCHARITRA Chapter 25 as narrated by Sri Ramanathan. Now let us begin to heed Sri Sai SATCHARITRA Chapter 26 titled as Prevention of Epilepsy and Stabilization of Faith. This is comparatively a small chapter comprising of 156 OVs. Let me try to give a gist of the topics discussed in this chapter. Ramanathan describes about Manasa Puja, its significance and rules. As per this puja, the devotee worships the chosen deity by performing all the rituals of the puja in their mind. After performing his Manasa Puja to Sri Sai Baba, Ramanathan narrates the stories of Bhakta Pant, explaining how Sri Sai Maharaj cured his seizures and re-established the devotion and faith on his family guru. Next, we will listen to the Leelas of Sri Sai in curing the uncurable epilepsy of Harichandra Pitale's son and Sri Sai Baba's revelation that he and Sri Akkalkot Maharaj are one and the same. Finally, he expounds the story of Mr. Ambadekar, who was in the verge of committing suicide, and how Sri Sai Baba saved his life and advised him that suicide will not be the end to his problem. Rather, he had to face the events of life with courage, as otherwise the bad karma will follow him birth after birth. So, to start with, we are going to now listen to the narration of Sri Ramanathan on Manasa Puja. It is generally said that the Manasa Puja is more effective and powerful when compared to the ritualistic puja that is performed outwardly. Poosalar Nayanar's story is a testimony to this fact. He had great love and devotion for Lord Shiva, along with a strong desire to build an abode for his beloved God. He never assessed his financial capabilities, but tried to collect funds for this noble cause. Unfortunately, he couldn't mobilize the necessary funds. He was rather disappointed, but didn't drop the idea of constructing the temple. He began to build it in his heart. He collected the money in his mind, appointed great mansions to build the magnificent divine abode for Lord Shiva. The construction took a long time. It didn't stop even a day. He slowly completed the altar, the sanctum sanctorum, tall walls around the temple, a beautiful pond outside the temple, and took care of the exterior work as well. The construction was completed to his heart's desire, and now fixed a day to install the deity and sanctify the holy abode. At this juncture, the Pallava king, who was greatly devoted to the three-eyed Lord, had also wished to construct a temple for Lord Shiva, hence built a glorious temple in the city of Kanchi. After discussing with the priest, he fixed the day for installation of the Lord in the temple. That night, the Lord of the holy mountains came in the dream of the king and said that he would not be able to enter the temple built by the king on that chosen date, as he will be entering into the temple built by Pusalar, and so told the king to have the installation on some other day. The king was very curious to see Pusalar and visit the temple that was built by this great devotee, that the Universal Father has chosen to go and stay there to acknowledge his love and devotion. So he inquired the people and his ministers about Pusalar and his temple. None could give any details about the temple, but came to know that Pusalar was a flawless devotee. The king went in person to the place of Pusalar and asked humbly to show the temple that he had constructed for the Lord with the matted hair, as he came to know from the Lord himself that it was the day the Supreme One will enter the abode. Pusalar was awestruck to listen to the words of the king. Tears of joy filled his heart and his throat was choked with emotions. He slowly narrated about his desire to build a temple, and as that didn't fructify, he began to construct one in his heart, which got completed and ready for installation. The king marveled at the devotion Pusalar had for the great Lord Shiva and saluted him with reverence. So, this story depicts the significance of the Manasa Puja and how this was accepted and recognized by the Heavenly Father. Once a question was raised to Prophet Muhammad asking out of the 5 prayers offered in a day, which one is the best? The Prophet said, the one offered between midnight and before dawn is the best one. When inquired the reason behind this, the Prophet said, the other 4 prayers are offered during daytime, which is visible to everyone. Hence, those who see them pray get the benefit of that prayer, while the one done during midnight goes unnoticed and gains no recognition. Thus, that can be considered as the best and can take the devotee close to God. Thus, to conclude, the Manasa Puja is performed by a devotee in his heart and doesn't get noticed by others, as it is not performed for obtaining recognition. Hence, it is considered as the best form of worship. Sri Ramanathan is also emphasizing this thought at the commencement of this chapter. We shall heed to it now. These OVs are sung by him, beseeching Sri Sai Maharaj thus: Ho Baba, we are washing your holy feet with our tears of joy. Let that become warm water to your feet. Let us make our love as sandal paste and smear it all over your body. May the unswerving faith we have upon you become your robe that covers you. The holy black powder that we offer on your forehead be the devotion we have for you. The girdle we tie on your hip be our deep devoutness, and our love for you is like the ornaments that are studded with precious stones. Now we offer our eightfold obeisance, which are like the 8-petaled lotus filled with fragrance. This eightfold obeisance is given more prominence by the Maharashtrians. This includes horripilation, motionlessness, perspiration, indistinctiveness of speech, tremor, paleness, tears, and loss of consciousness. These are termed as Ashtabhavas or 8 sattvic emotions. After decorating Lord Sri Sai Baba with all these wonderful things, Ramanathan continues his narration. He says we submit the Pancha Pranas as charmer or fan and wave it for you to ward off the heat. The Pranamaya Kosha is made up of the major pranas and they are collectively known as Pancha Pranas or 5 pranas, which are Prana, Vyana, Apana, Samana and Udana. Each of them has their own function to perform in the body. These 5 pranas are submitted totally in the worship of Sri Sai Baba. Then he wants to hold the umbrella, which can be compared to merging with Sadguru Sri Sai Baba. Thus, all the puja rituals have been performed after worshipping the Lord Sai Baba in this manner. Finally, Hemat Panji wants to do the ritual of warding off the evil eye that would have fell upon the magnificent form of Sri Sai Baba. For this purpose, Nimbalona must be performed. Nimbalona in Marathi is taking a mixture of neem leaves, salt and mustard and wave it around the face of a person to counteract the influence of an evil eye. The author says, Sri Sai Baba, we are going to put together all our trades and submit as Nimbalona and remove the effect that the evil eye would have caused upon you. After describing the significance and the steps involved in offering the Manasa Puja, Sri Hemat Panji is now expounding the Leela of Bhakta Panth, which we shall heed attentively now. Ramanathan brother says, whenever I read this Leela in Sri Sai SATCHARITRA, for some reason I always thought Bhakta Panth was a young man. When Bhakta Panth's relatives and friends persuaded him to go for Sri Sai Baba's darshan, he finally got convinced and came to Shirdi. But in the recent years, when I dwelled deeply into this topic, I could understand that Bhakta Panth was really an old man, because among the friends that encouraged him to go to Shirdi, there were few relatives also, and they were the parents of his daughter-in-law. So one can imagine the age of Bhakta Panth. As they were already in Shirdi, they asked Bhakta Panth to also come. He couldn't deny the request. Thus, forcefully he came for Sri Sai Baba's darshan. This divine sport of Sri Sai Baba depicts the story of Sri Sai pulling Bhakta Panth towards him. Why was Bhakta Panth hesitating to go for Sri Sai Baba's darshan? Let's ponder in detail. He has already got mantra upadesh from his guru, which means he was initiated by the guru. It is a common practice among the Maharashtrian families to have a Kula Guru, that is, a designated guru for their family. And Bhakta Panth was very much attached to his own guru. It is a rule that if a person was initiated by a guru, then as long as the guru is in his mortal coil, the disciple is not supposed to approach any other guru. If a person would violate this rule, then it is considered as an act of treachery to the guru. Thus, Bhakta Panth, who has received initiation from his family guru, was hesitant to visit another guru. Hence, even when many pressurized him to come to Shirdi, he was reluctant to come for Sri Sai Baba's darshan. Under such circumstances, Bhakta Panth was pulled to Shirdi by Sri Sai Maharaj, which makes this Leela more intriguing. There is another interesting Leela related to this context. It is worth sharing, says Ramanathan brother. Let us listen to it with complete attention now. This Leela is also connected to Sri Radhakrishna Mai, the most fervent devotee of Sri Sai Maharaj. She lived the life of a yogini. Sri Radhakrishna Mai demonstrated a leela to another ardent devotee by name Purushottam R. Avasthi. In December 1914, P.R. Avasthi came to Shiradi for the first time along with his friend M.B. Reg to have Sri Sai Baba's darshan. M.B. Reg is another great devotee of Sri Sai Maharaj and had come to Shiradi many times for darshan. He considers Sri Radhakrishna Mai as his own guru, and we have discussed in detail about M.B. Reg in our earlier episodes. P.R. Avasthi has accompanied M.B. Reg to Shiradi as he has been encouraged by his friend Gaga Sahib Dikshit to have Sri Sai Baba's darshan. Though he decided to go to Shiradi, his mind was very restless. The reason was, during his young age, he was given mantropadesh by a lady saint, which means he was initiated by a guru. P.R. Avasthi has grown old. He is not aware if his guru is still in the body, and this caused greater confusion. He wasn't sure if his decision of having Sri Sai Baba's darshan is appropriate. He was perturbed. Now M.B. Reg spoke thus: Sri Sai Baba is not a guru. He is a Parama Guru, master of masters. He is an incarnation of God. So, having his darshan can never be considered as disloyalty to your guru, or will not be accounted as a sin, as you are not visiting another guru. Hence, please come for darshan without any worry. But P.R. Avasthi was not convinced with these words of M.B. Reg. He was very much confused. When they both entered Dwarakamai, Sri Sai asked M.B. Reg, "Who is this Pisset?" On hearing this, P.R. Avasthi was excited. Pisset means crazy fellow. Next day, Sri Radhakrishna Mai took few jasmine flowers and made a small garland of it and gave it in the hands of P.R. Avasthi and said, "Take this to the master and submit it and ask him to unravel the knots in this." Neither P.R. Avasthi nor M.B. Reg could comprehend this. Sri Radhakrishna Mai at times had such subtle conversations with Sri Sai Baba. This incident is also considered as one of that sorts. What happened when P.R. Avasthi took this garland to Sri Sai Baba? How was he welcomed? What is that subtle message, and how was that unveiled by Sri Sai Baba? How did this relieve the turmoil of P.R. Avasthi? These captivating leelas can be heeded in the coming episode. Bow to Sri Sai. Peace be to all. Om Sai Ram.